Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're situated on this great, big, beautiful blue globe floating through the void of Yah's creation. It is April Fool's Day, April 1st, 2025, and as always, I have a loud and clear message to the legacy lying media. What do you suppose that could be? Listen up, all you guys. You won't be trusted anymore. No, you lost your credibility. You know, once you lose trust, it's almost impossible to get it back. And unfortunately, that's the situation that the legacy media finds themselves in. And I'm so happy to see it happening. People all over the country and indeed all over the world have come to realize that the media is not your friend. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you're consuming intellectual fecal matter from the mainstream media, then you end up with stuff for brains. Anyway, yes, as always, we are broadcasting from the most confused, dumbed down, manipulated, and brainwashed nation on the face of the planet. And I'm bringing you news and information, audio receipts here that they hope and pray you never hear. I'm Dave vonKleist. These are the WTF reports, as if we don't have enough reason to say WTF. What the is going on in this crazy world? Well, it seems that things are coming to a head all over the world. Let's see, if you look at what's going on in Ireland, the Irish population is below 40% now. Yeah, I mean, that's with all the immigrants that come in, they've fallen into a minority. Same things happening in Germany. Same things happening in France. Same things happening in many European nations. Sweden is on the ropes. Germany's on the ropes. And there's civil unrest in Romania. Looks like the election there is being messed with, and most of the people there know it. And in France, Marine Le Pen has been convicted of some corruption charges. They're barring her from running for political office, despite the fact that the overwhelming majority of the French want her there. They're sick of Macron. So yeah, the whole world is bubbling. It's percolating. It's reaching a boiling point. And yes, they're ramping up war with with Iran, and it's just a repeat performance. A repeat performance. Same stuff, different decade. And I want to remind folks, Elon Musk was on Sunday night. He was in Wisconsin, and he was talking about the strangely wealthy individuals in Congress. Now, we talked about this before, but I'll let you hear it from Elon Musk. Here it is.
Let's just say that there's a lot of strangely wealthy members of Congress, where I'm trying to connect the dots of how did they become rich while earning, how they get $20 million if they're earning $200,000 a year? It sounds, nobody can explain that.
Yeah, nobody can explain that. How did that work? How did that happen? And case in point, you got Jasmine Crockett. She's been a member of Congress for 18 months, not even 2 years yet, okay? And if she's on a salary of $175,000, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. If she's on a salary of $200,000, how in the heck did she come up with $10 million to be able to buy mansions? How did that happen? Where's all that money coming from? So, I mean, we should be asking these questions. And, you brain dead liberals out there that are torching and destroying the Tesla dealerships and vandalizing people's cars. I mean, I don't understand where your brains are at. I really don't. Because what he's doing is trying to save your dollars, too. And I was screaming about this stuff years and years ago. But I want to remind you, and I played this clip yesterday, I'll play it again today. Tim Burchett was in Congress, and he pointed out this very simple fact. Here it is.
Mr. Burchett for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Mr. Roman, are you aware that we are sending $40 million a week to the Taliban?
Yes, sir.
Can you name other instances of foreign aid going to terrorist organizations?
We have assisted al-Shabaab in Somalia. There's been instances of the Khamsi network in Sudan, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Kataib al-Hezbollah, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams in Syria. Dozens of terror organizations have received indirect assistance from U.S. foreign aid. These lobbyists have come to the House and have tried to kill legislation like H.R. 160, which was meant to increase transparency in USAID's funding of overseas organizations.
Is that a current piece of legislation?
That's from the last session.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there simply because I want to make sure I heard that right. Was it 40 million or was it 40 billion? Let's hear that again.
For 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Mr. Roman, are you aware that we are sending $40 million a week?
$40 million a week. $40 million a week to the Taliban. Let that settle in, okay? I know I played this yesterday, and doggone it, I'll play it again. You know, I mean, it's crazy. We were screaming about this stuff 20 years ago. Yours truly, as a matter of fact, the documentary film that I did back, it was in 2007. Yeah, it was almost 20 years ago. And and I was screaming about it then, and that was under the Bush administration. Of course, when under the Bush administration, they called me a left-wing Democrat, liberal. Under the Clinton administration, they called me a right-wing, right-wing Republican. Anyway, it's been going on, same deal, different decade.
Yeah, here's another song from GW, 43, Dick Cheney and the Carlisle Group.
20 years ago, folks.
Catch some Taliban and put them in Camp X-ray, interrogate them night and day. Give them little jumpsuits, ankle chains and handcuffs, and keep the media away. We'll load them up on C-130 transports in dark of night. And they don't even have to have their passports. We'll ask them questions under spotlight. Catch some Taliban.
Gotta laugh about it, folks. Gotta laugh or else you're gonna cry. Yeah, it's the same stuff. It doesn't change. It just doesn't change. And like Howard Beale was saying, where is it? Here it is.
We're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, we're in a lot of trouble. And there's more and more people that are screaming out.
1, 3, cue announcer.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it. How do you feel?
That's about the size of it. When does it stop? When does it stop? Well, it stops when we, the people, get involved. And I'm sorry, you can write your letters, you can write your emails, you can make your phone calls, you can go to your demonstrations, you can do all that stuff. But I'm sorry, the powers that be only understand one thing. They have to be forced out. They have to be forced out. Now, what force is, I don't know. It's up to you to figure that out. But that's unfortunately, that's what they understand. You know, and the only thing that they've got left now, they don't have the truth, and they know it. They don't have credibility. They know it. All they have now is lawfare. And this lawfare crap is going on all over the world now. I mean, the rest of the world's been watching what's been going on in this country for the past 10 years, ever since Trump took his trip down the Golden Escalator and declared that he was running for president. And ever since then, yeah, lawfare, this lawsuit, this impeachment, that impeachment, Russia hoax, and the rest of the world's been watching this and say, boy, the resistance against Trump is having some effect. It's slowing him down. Maybe we should use the same tactic. Yeah, and that's what they're doing. And the people of those different countries, they're not having it anymore. You know, I hate to say it, but they have more testicular fortitude than most of Americans do. Of course, we're right in the middle of March Madness, you know, so people are not paying attention, which serves the purpose of the deep state. And they're just hoping that you're just not paying attention. And when you do, most Americans have the attention span of a potato. So after a couple of weeks, it's a dead issue. Oh, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Nope, not going to do it. But yeah, this stuff about the money that's the obscene amounts of money that's being awarded to this and that and the other thing. It covered that about 16, 17, 18 years ago. It was covering this issue about the no-bid contracts to Halliburton. This is a little clip from the video documentary we made called 9/11 Ripple Effect.
That there are hundreds of government contractors in Iraq right now with countless contracts. Let's take a look at one of these government contracts, a no-bid contract that was awarded to Halliburton. The Houston Chronicle reported that 82,000 gallons of liquid propane fuel were to be transported to Baghdad. But they weren't going to be transported from the United States to Baghdad. They were going to be transported from Kuwait to Baghdad, a distance of approximately 300 miles. I contacted a liquid propane company and asked how many trucks it would take to transport 82,000 gallons of fuel. I was told about 10 trucks. I asked, how much would you charge to transport those 10 trucks approximately 300 miles? I was told approximately $1 per mile per truck, for a total of approximately $3,000. I asked if this was a government contract, how much would the charge be? And I was told that it would be 2 or 3 times that amount. So let's say it would be $10,000. The question is, how much was Halliburton awarded to transport this fuel? The answer, $27.5 million. How many of your tax dollars went to pay Halliburton to transport this fuel? Wouldn't it have been cheaper to have 10 privates drive those trucks that distance? The question is, how much money is coming out of the United States taxpayers' dollars to pay for this war and is being funneled into the pockets of companies like Halliburton? Is this a war for profit? You decide.
And again, this is not a partisan issue. This has nothing to do with being a conservative or a liberal, a Republican or a Democrat, a right wing or a left wing. It has everything to do with common sense, decency, and just doing the right thing. And again, they got away with it. They've been getting away with it for years and years, for decades. And the American people, as long as they've got their ball game and some pizza and some beer, they're just fine with that. And that's the problem. And this is why they get away with it. And it gets more and more and more corrupt. Every year that goes by, every decade that passes, it just keeps getting more and more corrupt. And that's where we are, and that's why we are where we are. And unfortunately, like I said, the brain-dead folks that are getting their information from the mainstream legacy media, who has been lying to you. I mean, flat out, irrefutable, undeniable, pharmaceutical grade BS is what they've been throwing at you. And unfortunately, so many people are consuming that. They actually believe that Musk is going to tear away their Social Security. He's going to destroy Medicare and Medicaid, despite the fact that he's been up there. He was on, I wish I had the audio clip from the last Sunday, but he came flat out. He says, folks, we're not screwing around with the Social Security. We're trying to recover all the Social Security that has been stolen from you, and so we can give it back to you. And meanwhile, these, brain-dead liberals are listening to CBS and ABC and NBC. Of course, the Social Security is on the chopping block. They're going to take away your Medicare, your Medicaid. No, he's a monster. And they get out there and they're destroying the dealerships and they're vandalizing cars and stuff like that because they're consuming intellectual crapola. Anyway, I'm going to change gears a little bit. There was a news story out of Colorado, and this is a tragic story here, having to do with an undocumented illegal alien who was brought into the country, and he got a CDL license. And this has been going on for quite some time. So what do you suppose happens when you bring somebody into the country, you give them a license to drive an 18-wheeler down the country's interstates, and they can't read English, they can't speak English? What do you suppose is going to happen? Sounds like a great idea, right? Well, here's a report from Denver, ABC Channel 7, in regard to a horrific accident that happened there. Listen up.
Driver accused of killing one person and hurting another in a crash near Conifer is now in ICE custody. Our cameras were the only ones there as Ignacio Cruz Mendoza walked out of the Jefferson County Jail yesterday, where immigration agents were waiting for him.
He was sentenced to 1 year behind bars following that crash last summer on Highway 285. Denver 7 Investigates was the first report that, according to ICE, Cruz Mendoza was in the U.S. illegally at the time of that crash and has been removed from the U.S. 12 times since 2002. and when Cruz Mendoza was arrested. The records revealed he did not have a valid commercial driver's license and legally should not have been driving that semi. Well, now the widow of the man who died in the crash is pushing for reform in the trucking industry.
Investigative reporter Natalie Chuck joins us now to break it all down. Natalie, what does his widow want to see happen?
Well, we told you all at the top of the hour, Deanne Miller lost her husband Scott in that crash, and now she wants to see stricter laws nationwide for truck drivers. She's been working with American Truckers United. It's a group calling for reform in the trucking industry. Earlier this month, she actually went all the way to Arkansas, testifying in support of a proposed bill out there. It is being called the Secure Roads and Safe Trucking Act of 2025. The law would create stricter requirements for non-U.S. citizens operating commercial vehicles and require that drivers speak and read English. Plus, it would create harsher penalties for drivers operating without a valid commercial driver's license. That is something that Deanne says she would like to see here, you guys, in Colorado.
So, Natalie, what changes has Colorado made to the trucking industry?
Yes, so they actually did make some strides last year. Colorado passed some legislation just before this crash, House Bill 241135. It changed the penalties for any driver operating a commercial motor vehicle without a CDL. Previously, this was just a traffic infraction, which is a civil matter, but instead this law made this a violation that is a misdemeanor. It also holds employers accountable who might hire someone knowing that they did not have the proper CDL. So a little bit of a step in the direction that Deanne wants to see Colorado take.
A little bit of accountability there.
All right, Natalie Chuck, thanks for staying on top of the story for us.
Okay, so that's a story out of Colorado, and again, that was from ABC Channel 7 in Denver. Well, there's a little bit of follow-up on that story because there are some folks there was a Judicial committee that was discussing this exact scenario, this problem. Of course, it was created under the Biden administration. And yes, for those of you who are paying attention, I hope there's a lot of you that are paying attention, we know doggone well that this was done deliberately by the Biden administration. Now, if this was an execution of the Cloward-Piven directive, and the more you look into it, the more it looks like it's that way, basically to dilute the American population and bring in all kinds of illegals to create pressure on the welfare system and the infrastructure, and also to create the problems that we're seeing on the highways right now. So anyway, this is an excerpt from the hearing that was being the Judicial Committee. Give a listen to this. It basically backs up what you just said, what they just said here.
Thank you. If you'll identify yourself for the record.
Yes, sir. I'm Harvey Beach. I'm one of the co-founders of American Truckers United, and my family has been in the trucking business in Arkansas for 43 years. I'm going to really quickly try to give you guys some facts and then also speak to the enforcement language that was in 1745. Some facts. The American Trucking Association advised our federal government that it was okay to give non-citizens what's called a non-domiciled CDL. And it's important to note that a non-domiciled CDL cannot even be used to board an airplane in our country. The Biden administration, with their open borders policy and under the advisement of the American Trucking Association, created the Biden Trucking Action Plan in 2021. And the results of that plan flooded hundreds of thousands of unvetted non-citizens into the long-haul trucking segment. The majority of these folks cannot read, speak, or understand English. And again, I would like to point out a non-domiciled CDL cannot be used to board an airplane in our country. The American Trucking Association and the Arkansas Trucking Association endorsed the Biden Trucking Action Plan. Since that plan has been put in place, there has been an effort by the American Trucking Association to pass bills in as many states as possible that allow for non-domiciled CDLs and even non-domiciled learner's permits, which was in the original draft of House Bill 1745. I want to talk about the enforcement language. The employment authorization document, which I realize they just amended the bill. most, if not all, of these folks that possess non-domiciled CDLs already have that document. So requiring that does nothing to help.
I apologize, Mr. Beach, your time is up, but okay. I think there will be some questions from the committee.
Yes, sir. I'm sure there should be some questions from the committee. Absolutely. So the more you look into it, the more you realize that, yes, this is deliberate. There really is. It really is deliberate. And unfortunately, like I was saying a few minutes ago, most Americans just not paying attention. They don't care. And even if they do pay attention and they get upset by a particular news story, well, guess what? In a couple of days, maybe a week, they've moved on because they have the attention span of a potato.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the Modern American Song. Well, I'm an American and I've got rights as long as my government says so. And I can do anything I want as long as I get a license or a permit. And the things that I own debt-free. As long as I pay tax, they won't take them from me. Yeah, I'm in control of my destiny. At least that's what they tell me. Yeah, I've got the right of redress, but they don't have to answer. And I can ask any questions I want as long as it doesn't make them look bad. Because here in America, the government answers to me unless it's a question of national security. Yeah, I can say anything I want as long as I agree with them. Yeah, here in America, I've got a free press as long as I own it. And I can trust the TV reporters as far as I can throw a bus. Because I get my news from my TV, and I see the world the way they want me to see it. And we don't have any spin doctors, but I get dizzy just watching them. And my political voice can be heard as long as it's Republican or Democrat. And I can vote any way I want, but I don't get to see them counted. Because here in America, our elections are free and the results are in before the count on my TV. Yes, we elect our own officials, and that's what they want us to believe. Yeah, I've got the right to own a gun as long as they say so. And I've got the right to demonstrate as long as there's not more than two of us at a time. Our forefathers secured our liberty, but we've traded them in for our security. No, we don't need our rights anymore because our government's going to take good care of us. Yes, I know I'll get a speedy trial if they want to shut me up. And I've got a right to defend myself, but I can't submit any evidence. Yes, I'll expose the corrupt and I won't budge as long as I'm not exposing some judge. Yeah, I can say anything I want, but I won't have to...
Get More Tank will save you money every month on gas. Get More Tank is a tablet with active ingredients that adds big mileage to every tank. Made in America, the Get More Tank formula is used by trucking companies and heavy industry. Now the Get More Tank formula is available to you. Get More Tank works in any gas or diesel engine, cleans your engine, lowers emissions, and you'll feel improved engine performance every time you step on the gas. Get More Tank works for cars, trucks, boats, motorcycles, four-wheelers, mowers, and blowers. Hey, if you got an engine, then Get More Tank. Contractors, electricians, plumbers, painters, and lawn service companies, Get More Tank will save you money and extend the life of your engines. If you're an owner-operator running your big rig around the town or across the country, Get More Tank will save you money too. If you're a farmer, all of your equipment can use Get More Tank. A 5-pack on sale at GetMoreTank.com for just $22.22 plus shipping. Use the promo code REDPILL101 and get 10% off. Save your money, save your engine, save the earth at GetMoreTank.com. Get More Tank is EPA registered, doesn't void warranties, results vary. And I wouldn't be carrying it as a sponsor if I didn't know that it worked. I've been using this stuff myself for the past, 7 months, 8 months now, and my car runs great, and I get much better mileage. So go to our website. Do it. Come on, do it. Go to the WTFReports.com and click on our advertisers page, on our sponsors page. It'll take you right to the the whatever the heck it is. You click on it and it'll take you to Get More Tank and you'll get your discount and you will start saving money on your fuel and your vehicle will run a whole lot better. And speaking of advertisers and sponsors, we have a new sponsor that we've taken on. It's Blackout Coffee. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been drinking coffee for a long time. I love to drink my coffee. Yeah, sometimes I figure I should give it up and maybe take it intravenously, but that wouldn't look good walking around with an IV bag with black coffee in there. But anyway, Blackout Coffee is some good stuff, and they have several different roasts: medium roast, light roast, dark roast, and they also, are supporting different organizations that are very patriotic. For instance, the Firearms Policy Coalition, the FPC, that is a medium roast that is, like I said, supporting all of these different organizations. Then there's the Guns and Gadgets Second Amendment medium roast coffee. Then there's also one called, this is a dark roast, and it's called Brutal Awakening, and that's BREW, Brutal Awakening. It's good stuff. And like I said, this is a company that is patriotic, and they support first responders, law enforcement officers, and our military. So they're all like-minded individuals. Now we know what's going on with the liberal crowd. Okay, they're using cancel culture, and they're boycotting this and that because they perceive it to be conservative. Oh my gosh! Oh, that's terrible. Well, if you want to support this conservative movement here, do business with Blackout Coffee. Once again, go to our website, TheWTFReports.com. Click on the sponsors page and get more tank and get some Blackout Coffee. All right, that said, back to the news. As a matter of fact, I'm going to open up the phone lines. Why not? The number here, you might want to write it down. It's 215-867-8255. That's 215-TOP-TALK. That's what it spells out to be. 215-867-8255 if you feel like bellying up to the telephone bar and joining the conversation. Okay. I came across an interesting clip by Ronald Reagan, and this is kind of cute. I think you might get a kick out of this. Give a listen to this one.
Recently asked my friend's little girl what she wanted to be when she grows up. She said she wanted to be the President of the United States. Both of her parents, liberal Democrats, were standing there. So I asked her, if you were president, what would be the first thing you would do? Well, she replied, I'd give food and houses to all the homeless people. Her parents beamed. Wow, what a worthy goal, I told her. But you don't have to wait until you're president to do that. You see, you can come over to my house right now, and you can mow the lawn, pull weeds, and sweep my driveway, and I'll pay you $50. Then, I'll take you over to the grocery store where that homeless guy hangs out, and you can give him the $50 to use toward food and a new house. She thought that over for a few seconds, then she looked me straight in the eye and asked, why doesn't the homeless guy come over and do the work, and you can just pay him the $50? I said, welcome to the Republican Party. Her parents are still not speaking to me.
I love it. I tell you, common sense sometimes is just unbelievable. Anyhow, I just thought you'd get a kick out of that. Okay, in other news, let's see, where do I go from there? Oh, yeah, in Arizona, they've been doing an audit of the 2020 election. Yeah, it's still out there. There's still some people out there looking at the results of the 2020 election. Guess what they found out?
Earlier today and last night, the key takeaways from the hearing today, looking at my notes, there were more than 255,000 early votes shown in the county's final vote that did not have a corresponding early voting entry, meaning they didn't have that record, but yet there was 255,000 ballots. That is a lot of ballots. There were also over 23,000 who voted by mail after moving after the cutoff, so they no longer lived in the state or in the county. There were 23,000 voters who had cast double votes. There were 9,000 more mail-in ballots were received and recorded than the official number of mail-in ballots. There's a large discrepancy, more than 255,000 in discrepancy, and you talked about the 50,000 that was leaked in the report last night saying that there could potentially be these fraudulent ballots. We also know that the machines were connected to the internet, contrary to what the county was saying before the audit, saying that they weren't connected to the internet. we've learned conclusively that they were, and not only were they connected to the internet, but there was also remote access available to the EMS system, the election management system that was used. So there's a lot of discrepancies, there's a lot of explaining to do, and I want to point out the fact that the audit did not say that Joe Biden won. That is a leftist spin that's putting on it. The part that confirmed the hand recount is the same thing as counting potentially fraudulent ballots. It's the same thing we saw in Georgia right after the election. We saw a lot of people concerned saying, why are they doing a recount of the same fraudulent ballots to get the same fraudulent results? Well, it was part of the investigation, and they did that. So that's the explanation of where that count comes from. And they say the counts do match, they are close. However, there is a lot of indications of fraud. And so that's the discrepancy, that's the spin on the misinformation. So we need to see what comes of it, but there was a lot of information that came out today.
Yeah, it's all coming out. And by the way, I found it very interesting there that she was saying that they were indeed connected to the internet. They're not supposed to be. Now, I remember last year during the primary season, Nikki Haley, remember she was running against Trump and the others? Well, in North Carolina, I remember with the day that they went out to vote, the local news team was there, and they were having some problems at some of the polling stations. One of the guys that came out, he says, yeah, there was a delay. We were waiting around. And they said, well, what was the delay for? And he said, because they couldn't get connected to the internet. WTF! My gosh. I mean, it's right in your face, folks. Right in your ever-loving face. So, anyway, let's see. What else has been going on? Oh, yeah. JJ Carrell was talking about dual citizenship. Now, we've discussed this on this program several times. You may recall last year, Ilhan Omar was talking to a group of Somalians in their native tongue, and that's no problem with that. But she came flat out and said that she was dedicated towards representing Somalia here while she was in Congress. Now, a lot of people got real upset about that. Hey, you can't represent another country when you're serving in Congress. You can't do that. As a matter of fact, Ilhan Omar is being censured. Marjorie Taylor Greene, a couple of weeks ago, she wanted to censure Ilhan Omar for that exact reason. She says you cannot serve two masters. And this is what JJ Carrell was talking about. Here it is.
Here's something else America has no idea about. How many of our congressmen and senators are dual citizens? We don't know, because they don't have to disclose. And every time a bill comes up for disclosure, they vote it down. Why? Why should anyone in our houses of leadership, Senate, Congress, President, have dual allegiances? And don't tell me that that's not a problem. Let's look at let's look at Ilhan Omar from Somalia. Has an absolute allegiance, has been caught on video saying that her main allegiance is the betterment of Somalia. Not Somalian Americans, Somalia, the nation.
Now, here we go. I have to ask the question. Now, why is it a great big sin, and why is it a big problem for Ilhan Omar to voice her allegiance to Somalia? Now, I do have a problem with that, but it's not a problem if Nancy Pelosi says something about, the nation's capital can crumble to the ground, but she'll always have Israel, or shall I say Israel always be in her back pocket, something like that. Here it is.
If this capital crumbled to the ground, the one thing that would remain is our commitment to our aid. And I don't even call it aid, our cooperation with Israel.
Yeah, we'll call it what it is, aid, financial aid. You can call it cooperation. Yeah, how about the hundreds of billions of dollars that go to Israel every year? As a result, they have free education. They have free health care. They got all this other stuff free. Plus, we send them bombs and tanks and missiles and guns and all the weapons of war. No problem. None whatsoever. But she's not the only one. Hey, Chucky, what have you got to say?
For as long as I have the privilege of serving in the Senate from New York, I will unflinchingly, unstintingly, and with all of my strength be Shomer Yisrael, a guardian of Israel. Ladies and gentlemen, Am Yisroel Chai. In Israel and America, the Jewish nation lives now and forever.
Now and forever. Yeah, the Jewish nation. Does that mean the United States of Israel? Think about that. Why is it okay for these guys to have dual citizenship? And yes, they do have dual citizenship. United States and Israel. This has become the United States of Israel. I mean, let that settle in. Now, I want to point out, I am not an anti-Semite. I believe that the Israelis and all who are supporting Israel are the anti-Semites. Again, I refer to the Johns Hopkins University ancestry study of Israelis. 97.5% are not from that area. They're from Eastern Europe and North America. 80% of the Palestinians are indigenous. They have ancient Semitic blood. The Palestinians are the Semites, according to science. Yeah, that's it. So that makes the Israelis the anti-Semites. And of course, I will be branded as some sort of a hater because I'm pointing that out. And again, I'm just reporting it. I'm just the messenger. You can take me out if you want. Hey, I'm ready to go home anyway. But the bottom line here is that the truth has got to come out. It has absolutely got to come out. And there are more and more people that are seeing it. They really are. And they're saying, oh, well, Israel has the right to defend itself. Really? Really? Here's a post that some woman put out there in regard to Israel defending itself.
Israel has the right to defend itself. Israel has the right to defend itself.
Mm-hmm.
Hear me out. April this year, it was estimated that Israel has dropped more than 70,000 tons over Little Gaza. That surpasses the bombs dropped on Hiroshima, Nagasaki, London, Dresden, Hamburg, and World War II combined.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing Israel has the right to at this point is to go itself. And anyone else that claims that this is self-defense, you also can go and yourself.
Now, that does not mean she's pro-Hamas. Nuh-uh. And that's how the mainstream media is pushing it. Folks like Dan Bongino and all the folks on Real America's Voice and Newsmax and all the other alternative news networks that have popped up. Of course, you're going to get that anyway from ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, and all the other mainstreamers. But even the conservative upstart networks, One American News, they're all right behind Israel. Now, I have to ask the question, what does Israel have on all these people, Jeffrey Epstein? What is it that they're holding over these people, P. Diddy? What is it that they've got on them? I mean, Dan Bongino was talking about the Epstein files and about all the honeypot videos that I'm sure that they're going through. And again, in P. Diddy's case, they've got 1,400 or 14,000 hours of video. I forget what it is, but a huge amount of video footage to go through. Same thing with the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. But they're not going to tell you. They say you don't look for what you don't want to find. And then Dan Bongino, of course, is saying, oh, yeah, they got all this video footage and it went off to some Middle Eastern country. I don't know what it is. Where could it be? Yeah, okay. Yeah, Dan, and now you're assistant FBI director? And you can't figure out who's got the video footage from Jeffrey Epstein? Please. I'm not stupid. I know I know it. And most of the people listening to this broadcast know it too. And anybody who's been paying attention, even a little bit, knows doggone well that Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell. Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell. She was the daughter of Robert Maxwell. And he was part of the Mossad. Oh, yeah, we can't figure out what country's got the video. No. Of course it's Israel. And of course there are many, many very high-profile politicians and business people who went to Epstein Island and hung out there. Not just in the public sector, in the private sector, in Hollywood, TV, in publications, all these people, big names, like Bill Gates and well, there's so many names I can't even think of one right now. Tom Hanks, there's another one, right? Even Mick Jagger. Anyway, so we just can't figure out who's got all that video footage. No. And maybe that doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with the decisions being made on the House floor or in the Senate. No. It couldn't possibly be that there's some sort of Israeli influence there. And I'm not even talking about AIPAC. No. It's staggering, folks. It really is. It's staggering. But anyway, again, the phone number here, the phone system is strangely quiet. I haven't used this. It's a program here that we got set up last week. So we want to try it out. So if you want to give me a call, I'd love to hear what you have to say about what this wackadoodle broadcaster is telling you on your device. The number here is 215-867-8255. Again, that's 215-867-8255. So, I suppose that I go a little bit off the rails when I'm talking about some of this stuff, because to me, I've been watching this stuff for decades. Okay, I got my broadcaster's license back in 1979. I started in radio shortly after that. And in the late 80s, early 90s is when the 2x4 of reality smacked me upside the head, and I started paying attention. And I started listening to other talk shows. I had a job where I was driving a little van around, and all they had was an AM radio. So I dialed around. I started listening to Rush Limbaugh. And, I agreed with a bunch of what he said. However, I knew doggone well that he was holding back. As a matter of fact, one time I called in, and I actually got through. Bo Snerdley, he's the guy that answered the phone. I told him I wanted to talk about the Council on Foreign Relations and the Trilateral Commission. And basically he hung up on me. And, of course, Rush Limbaugh was saying, that's just conspiracy theory. There's no such thing. And I was like, oh, come on. Really? Really? You're going to deny that the Council on Foreign Relations existed? So that's when I started looking around for some of the alternative information. I discovered Chuck Harder and the For the People radio network. And then there was the Sun radio network with Tom Valentine. And then I got myself a shortwave radio. And I was listening to Bill Cooper. Yeah, William Cooper. He's the one who wrote that book, Behold a Pale Horse. And he had a show on WWCR, which is Worldwide Christian Radio on the shortwave. And it was called The Hour of the Time. And so I was getting myself educated with some of the alternative information. So anyway, I don't know why I went down that particular road, but I've been watching this stuff for a long time. And it's frustrating. It really is. Because, this stuff is really important that people understand. You can't fight an enemy if you're refusing to face it. And not just face it, but look it right in the eye. It's not easy to do. But, and some people, they just don't want to deal with this. Oh, man, it's so depressing. You're dealing with all this horrible death and destruction and the, collapse of the government and, financial insanity. Yeah, I get that. I can understand why you're uncomfortable with that. But, people have a natural fear of the unknown. We all know that there's a fear of the unknown. But common sense tells me that once you make the unknown known, the fear will dissipate. And that's true. Once you start to understand, there's a hump that you have to get over, and you start taking in all this information, you're doggone right it's uncomfortable. And a lot of people go through some very difficult times. You have to face the fact that everything that you've been taught is a lie. Everything. And when that means all of a sudden you have to deal with your own ego and your own pride. And if you let that get in the way, then you're stuck. You'll never be able to move forward. But you push that ego and pride aside and say, okay, I was wrong about this. And again, that's a learning experience that helps you to move forward. When you take a particular belief system or an idea that you've held close and near and dear to your heart, and all of a sudden you find out that it's wrong. And in fact, that it's a cancer. It prevents you from moving forward. Well, that's the time to let it go. And, yes, it's difficult to do, but you got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and move forward. Open your mind. There's two different kinds of people in this world. There are folks out there that have an exclamation point over their head. That's because they know. Yeah, you can't tell them anything. That's because I know, exclamation point. I understand. I got it. You can't tell me anything. And the doors of information that go into, the doors to their brain, for information to come in, those doors are closed because they know. I don't need any more information. I already know. Okay? And now there's another kind of person that has a question mark over their head because they want to know. And their doors are open. They take in information so that they can weigh it out for themselves. Does this make sense? Does that make sense? And this is how you grow intellectually and emotionally, for that matter. So the point is, I'm trying to get everybody out there to get rid of that exclamation point, open up your mind and put a question mark there, because everything we've been told since we were kids, it turns out it was a lie. It turns out it was horse hockey. It turns out it was BS. And one of the things, as a matter of fact, I'm going to play this audio here. There is I believe he's either Scottish or Irish. I couldn't quite pick out the accent. And for those of you who are Scottish or Irish, I apologize. But I thought I might share this. This gentleman was going through a whole bunch of old newspapers. And I'll let you, all I'm going to do is play this, because there's a magic number out there. A magic number. What are you talking about, Dave? Well, it's a number that conjures up certain ideas and pictures in your mind. And I'm going to let this little audio clip go, and you figure out what the magic number is and what it means. Here it is.
As in the Sun of New York, Sunday, June the 6th, 1915. This is 18 years before Hitler ever set foot in the government.
Okay, it says 1915, the New York Sun newspaper. Okay.
These people. 6 million Jews. The New York Times, October the 18th, 1918. And the article is called $1 billion Fund to Rebuild Jewry. There it is. 6 million souls will need help to resume normal life when war is ended.
It's a magic number.
The New York Times, September the 8th, 1919. And the article is called Ukrainian Jews Aim to Stop Pogroms. Mass meeting here that 127,000 Jews have been killed and 6 million are in peril.
Magic number.
The New York Times, November the 12th, 1919. And have reduced to tragically unbelievable poverty, starvation and disease. About 6 million souls, or half the Jewish population of the earth. February 23rd, 1920. 6 million Jews. Friday, May the 7th, 1920. The Fund for Jewish War Sufferers in Central and Eastern Europe, where 6 millions face horrifying conditions of famine, disease and death. New York Times, Wednesday, July the 20th, 1921. 12 years before Adolf Hitler ever set foot in the government. Look at that. Russia's 6 million Jews are facing extermination by massacre. The Gazette, Montreal, December the 29th, 1931. And the article pretty much speaks up for itself. 6 million Jews face starvation.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? That's a magic number. Now, all of those newspapers, those were back in the 19-teens and 1920s and 1930s, before the Second World War. And yet that magic number was popping up in newspapers. Now, I don't know what the significance is. I don't know. Was it were they planting scenes for a psyop that was going to come down the pike maybe a decade or two later? I don't know. I'm just the messenger. Don't get pissed off at me. I'm just sharing you what this gentleman was doing. And he's put that out. By the way, I saw that several years ago, and I went back to look for it, and it was removed from YouTube. But it's only recently been put back out there. So the point is, why that magic number? Why is it 6 million? How does that work? I don't know. But a lot of people now are starting to take a second look at what happened in World War II. As a matter of fact, Milei, president of Argentina, just dropped a huge truth bomb, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to play that. Yeah, he said that Adolf Hitler got out of Germany and he lived another 20 years in Argentina, had 2 daughters. And all the documentation, and by the way, you can see some of this documentation if you go to that website I've told you about. I don't know, I haven't talked about it in a couple weeks. But you might want to check out the website, IngersollLockwood.com. IngersollLockwood.com. Make sure there's 3 L's. IngersollLockwood.com. Now, when you get there, you'll see this is a website for the United States Space Force. Yeah, you can sign up there. And you can join any branch of the military. Yes, it's a recruitment site. And, they collect your name, your address, your email, blah, 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 which leads me to believe that this is a legitimate website, because if there was some bogus website out there to claim that it was the United States Space Force, don't you think the government would take it down? Of course they would, especially if they're collecting data from people. So that leads me to believe that this is a legitimate website. So once you get to IngersollLockwood.com, you scroll down and start moving your cursor over every letter, every space, every period, and punctuation mark. You will find hidden links that bring you to all kinds of very, very interesting information. And as a matter of fact, there's a part there where it has the word etc. It's ETC period. And the ETC period has 3 hidden links, one of which will take you to a website that has all this documentation about what happened after World War II and the Nazis. And yes, there's information there about how Hitler got to Argentina and how he was living down there. Of course, that's all just conspiracy theory. Yeah, well, that's what people have been saying for the past several decades. But now here we got the president of Argentina coming out and saying, yes, it's all true. That's for real, folks. So like I've been saying, we've been lied to about everything, and that includes what we were told happened in World War II. So we have to get rid of that exclamation point over our heads, replace it with a question mark. Open your minds, realize that sometimes you have to take, this house that you've built your beliefs in. Sometimes that house is built on a faulty foundation. And that means you're going to have to basically tear the house down and start over. Now, hopefully we won't have to do, a whole bunch of demolition. But my gosh, there's a whole lot of stuff that has to be revisited and rethought and re-examined. And if you're not willing to do that, well, then you're going to be basically basking in the pool of your own misconceptions. And you have the media to thank for that. And by the way, I want to remind you that if you would like to restore integrity into the media, there is a website out there, change.org/Smith-Munt, M-U-N-D-T. Okay? And you got to go there and sign the petition. We got to reinstate the Smith-Munt Act, which was basically rescinded by President Obama in the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act. Yeah, they put in there the Smith-Munt Modernization Act, which basically made it legal for them to propagandize the American people, which was illegal up until then. Well, they've been doing it anyway. So yeah, go to change.org/Smith-Munt, M-U-N-D-T, and sign the petition. We have to get integrity back into our media here, folks. We have to. We can't make, informed decision with bad information. And I've been telling folks that for a long time. Open your minds, get the stuff going again. Anyway, that's going to do it for this April 1st, April Fool's Day installment of the WTF Reports. And I invite you to go to the website, TheWTFReports.com. Click on our sponsors page and do some business with us. Help us to keep the lights on. We want to grow this program. We can't do it without your help. So make sure that you share it with your friends and family. Say it's kind of fun. Yeah, this is fun to listen to some of the news. I'm Dave vonKleist. I thank you so much for your listenership. God bless you all. Please stay safe and above all, stay free. God bless you all.
Turn on the light. You won't